came. So to you're welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm going live. This is a live recording. It's because I'll also post it on my page on my YouTube channel. So what do I do? I'm a Christian. I'm a novelist. I write novels mostly, although I write non-fiction for teenagers. But I write novels, and they are Christian novels, as in Christian romance. That means they are faith-based. Um, what are the things you should expect in my novels? You expect biblical teachings and principles that can be disputed. So I tell people it's unapologetically Christian. It's not unapologetically Christian novel. But there's also romance. So people will be like, oh, romance. When people hear of romance, they tend to look at it in the negative side. But of course, romance is about relationship, it's about intimacy. And even we have romance with God. That's the truth. So it's when you have so we're talking about love, and then really God is love. So what are we talking about? And now teaching it in the godly way, in the way that will using story to tell it in a way that will actually bring it home the more. So it's not like it's for unbelievers, it's for or for people that are um into fornication or things like that. It's actually also for us to learn how we can be loved and how we should love. And so I've written 8 books. 8 books. Sorry, not 8 books now. Did I say 13 books? I've written 13 books or 14. But 4 is for teenagers, and I have 4 or 5 for teenagers. And I have written 8 novels right now as of today that I'm doing this live recording. I have 8 novels, and I've got some of them in paperback. There's a bag that I keep them. So this is the bag I keep my author's copy. So let me just bring them out. I don't waste time. Let me bring them out. Yeah, these are the 8 books. 8 books. Okay. Oh. Sorry, I don't have all of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 here, but I actually I have other ones that are not here. Okay, I think Om and Jumai. They are my first 2 books. I didn't know I was supposed to bring everything anyway. So there's Om and Jumai, Before Zarachi, then Marriage of Convenience. Then I have In Search of a Bride, In Search of a Bride, In Search of a Groom. I have okay, At the Scent of Water, Before Zarachi. Look at me. Then the newest one, which is When the Past Came Calling, To the Glory of God, All to the Glory of God. So what do I write about? I write about everything about basic life, reading. And I started with Jumai. Jumai was, how did I get into my writing journey? Jumai was just like a story that I just wanted to use because I'm very active online. I have a Facebook and Instagram page where I write things, and then that was the year COVID hit. That's 4 years ago. So I just wanted to write a short story about um rape victims and how they need support from their loved ones. And amazingly, I was just writing it on my WhatsApp page. I opened a page for a group for I put my one of my daughter's number and myself, and I just started writing it. And before I knew it, it was a full-blown book. Like, it still amazes me, and that's why I know that what the Bible says in Job 32:8, I think 8 or 3, says that there's a spirit in man, and the breath of the Almighty gives him inspiration. Is so real. Because at that time, yes, before that time, I'd heard the Holy Spirit tell me, tell your stories. And so how do I still tell my story? It's like I get to weave stories in my head. Like, I started reading from a very young age, maybe like I say 8. I loved books. I started reading all these ladybirds. I would even go to the library. I was living in Badagry then with my aunts as a child. So there was a library. There was a library very close to our house, a government library. And even though I was so young, when I'm coming from school, at times I could come, I get a ride halfway. So I'll drop at my bus stop. And very close to my bus stop is like, there's a I will turn to the left. That's the way to the library. To the right is the way to my home. So I'll just go to the left, and I'm going to the library to go and read Ladybirds. I'll borrow books at the age of 8 or thereabout. Yes, thereabout. And I fell in love with novels. I fell in love with, and even when the Holy Spirit said him to. So home is like two young couples, they fell in love, they got married, but is love really enough to sustain a home? So that's the story of home. That's the story of Nemrod and Uforo. Yes, Nemrod and Uforo. So I write stories about Africans with African cultures and our beautiful, rich African cultures, and even African characters. So Uforo is from Uyo, which is in Akwa Ibom state in Nigeria, while Nemrod is from Jos in Plateau State, also in Nigeria. I'm trusting God to be able to cross out of Nigeria. One of these days, I'll write stories about other African countries, about characters in other African countries. So, but I'm staying with the African culture and African people. So that's about um home, which is my second novel. And Nimrod had to leave home, So where is really home? The note she dropped for her husband was, oh, I've gone back home. So where is really home? That is the whole essence. And then we see it's a beautiful story, if I dare say so. And I must say that apart from my newest book that is like taking a lead in my heart now, Home remains one of my favorite books I've written and I've read, because I also read it as a write. I also read my books as a reader. So one of the things that helped me is God helped me to learn how to read so well that it also comes into play in my writing. So even though I've written it, at times I go back before I send it to my editor. I go back and I read it with the lens of a reader, not just like I'm the writer. So that, by God's grace, that helps me. So home is, where is home? And then when I was going to write home, God told me, He said, I want to I wanted to write another story, but I heard God tell me that I want to teach people about marriage. And I can tell you some of the revelations in that book weren't just mine. And at a point when I was writing it, I will shed tears. That's the truth. I will shed tears because the words kept coming, and it just kind of blew my mind. It just kind of it was just so much for me. Like, it was overwhelming. The presence of God writing that book was so overwhelming. So that's home. Then it comes to the Scent of Water. The Scent of Water, this book, it's an amazing book, if I dare say so. So what's the story all about? So I have Juma too. Was the setting is in Jos. Yes, somebody said it's like, I love Jos so much. I've never been to Jos, but I actually love Jos. I don't know, somehow my heart is knitted to the place. So Jos, my first book was written in Jos. The second one had a bit of Jos and Uyo. Then this one, At the Scent of Water, is basically set in Abeokuta, is the capital of Ogun State, which is also a state in Nigeria. But Ada is the sister to Nemrod. So we have the three stories, and I call them the Just series. My first three books, that's um Jumai, Home, and At the Scent of Water. I call them the Just series. So what is the story behind At the Scent of Water? It actually talks about, I'm writing with a very strong theme, not just yes, people want to read romance. It's okay, but life itself is not only about romance. We have the intrigues, we have the ups and downs, we have the everyday challenge. So we have a lady here whose name is Ada. Ada is like, she has dyslexia, which is a reading challenge, and her mother didn't understand it because her mother is an high achiever. So I created a character of her mother who is goal oriented, who is a choleric, and we know the features of a choleric. So unless you are you have the spirit of God as a person, if you're choleric, it can turn on dictatorship. And so that's what we see with the mother of these three girls. So I told a little of the story of their first sister, who is Lami, in the story of Jumai. So Lami is friend to Jumai. Then in my second book, Nemrod is the main character, who is the younger sister of Lami, who is the younger, yes, the younger sister of Lami. Then Ada is the third sister in the series, and that's why we have At the Scent of Water. So what happened? The mother couldn't manage it. The mother was so forceful. She was so mean to Ada, and Ada had to leave home as a young girl after she had failed because she had dyslexia. She had failed, in At the Scent of Water. She had failed so much, and then she had to leave home and go and start a life for herself. Somehow, she ended in Ogun State, in Abeokuta, in Ogun State, and then she met the love of her life, who is Bode, a Yoruba guy, and it's just a beautiful story. Of course, there's always reconciliation because relationships are we are bound to hurt each other in relationship. And one of the things that is so strong that God teaches me to write strongly about is redemption and really forgiveness. So there's no way you say you're a child of God and you don't forgive, because even in the Lord's prayer it says, forgive us this day, forgive us as we forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. So when there's no forgiveness as children of God, you are saying that when you don't forgive as a child of God, what you are saying invariably is, God, don't forgive me as I don't forgive others. So it's very important for us to understand that forgiveness is a must as children of God. So in whatever I write, I talk about forgiveness. So at the end of the day, Ada had to go back and forgive her mother for all that she had done. Then I have the beautiful story of Zarachi. Zarachi's stories, you know. Okay, so I love to tell this story often. Um, I wrote Zarachi. I was just watching one of the clips from one of the Nathan Ebasi's song, one of the video clip, and that's why we should be very mindful of what we imbibe, what we take in, what we allow into our space. And as I watched it, the story just came alive. And what's the story about? It's just the story about a young, struggling lady. She's the firstborn child, and we know in the African culture, the firstborn child has so many responsibilities. You could literally ask a firstborn child that what is your occupation, and he will just say, I'm a firstborn. Do you understand? It's like you are just a firstborn, and that's even an occupation in itself. So Ada, and coupled with that, the um her, her mother was sent out with her three girls when they were young because the mother had only girls. Yes, it's still a thing with some African cultures or some Africans that, a boy, a woman must have a boy to carry on the name of the family and blah blah blah. So we see her that through her struggles and everything, her mother became capacitated. So all the body had to be on her. But in the midst of all of it, she still found love with Afam, another great guy that loved God. So what does my book teach? It teaches also how to it teaches how of strong men that are in Christ, and how they love their women, and how the women also love their men. So that's very important. So lovely. So Zarachi and Marriage of Convenience are like sequels. So you could read it as a read alone, but Zarachi, then there's this it follows because Zarachi has a younger sister who is Ogadima. So in my culture, they used to say something is like an adage that Dada Oleja, Olaburo to Bojule. I'm Yoruba, by the way, married to an Edo man. So that means you Dada is the name of a person, cannot fight, but has a younger one that is stronger and like a warrior. So that's the story of Zarachi and Ogadima. So Zarachi is like, coupled with all of her responsibilities, she's not even into drama, but she has this younger sister that is just too dramatic. She's like the fire, the fireball. She's God. She's the warrior. She's the one that will take up the whole, she will take up anybody to protect her own and her family. And the amazing thing is Zara, Ogadima, who is the main character in Marriage of Convenience, has swore off marriage. So she's not even getting married. But of course, God always has a plan for us. Because in Jeremiah 27, it says 29:11, it says, I know the plan that I think towards you. They are thoughts of good and not of evil. So we see Ogadima getting to a position in her life and saying, am I going to yield or am I not going to yield? And then it comes with a ready-made family. What does it mean? The man God has in mind for her is a widower with 2 kids. So I'm sure we would love to read Marriage of Convenience. Now, this is my this is my sixth book, which is In Search of a Bride. In Search of a Bride. In Search of a Bride is a book that is a novel. Okay, so sorry about that. I think I had a break, a connection issue. So In Search of a Bride is a story about Deji, and it talks about trauma. It's about trauma because it addresses the issue of grief and losing our loved ones, losing a loved one. Excuse me. I know as Africans, we don't believe in therapy. We don't believe that people should, oh, people have lost parents. So for me, I lost my mom at the age of 18. And recently we had to do like a kind of memorial. And some people felt that, oh, after 30 years, it was 30 years. Why do a memorial? But it was a closure for us because I knew what happened that time. It's not something I want to really go into, but the grief was like, okay, I didn't get time to grieve. Nor do I think any of my siblings had time to grieve her. So that's kind of you know that's been with me all through these years anyway. And then this story is about a young man that is very attached to his mom and then lost the mom at a very young age. But the father didn't know that he was grieving all through until he became an adult. He's doing very well. He's from a wealthy home. He has money of his own. He's in his late 30s and he's not even thinking about get married. He doesn't have girlfriend. He doesn't have anybody. Nobody has ever seen a lady with him. And the father had to go in search of a bride for the groom for his son. Had to go in search of a bride for his son. And it was later realized that it was because of the trauma from his mother's death that held him hostage for years. And this had resulted in a lot of issues, and dependency on sleeping pills and addiction and things like that. So, but in the midst of it, Deji, who is the main character, found love with Gloria. Another beautiful story. Then we have the In Search of a Groom. In Search of a Groom is a sequel to In Search of a Bride. So what's the story all about? Now, still siblings, Deji and Tayo, yes. So Deji and Tayo are siblings, but the death of their mother affected them in different ways. So that's why grief is so strong, and when people hurt, they react in different ways. For Deji, he bottled it in, and then he wasn't just going to allow anybody to love him or to love anybody. But for Tayo, she needed that love that she didn't get from her mom that died. Her mom died when she was very young, and she just went on, on rampage. Falling into bed, sleeping with every man she could get, falling into the arms of any man because she just wanted to be loved. And so, but along the line, she got saved. So it's also a story of salvation. She got saved and she rededicated her life to Christ. So what happens after someone who has been sexually active? So this is a struggle too, and it's not something that God doesn't know. You have been sexually active I'm working on that by the grace of God. When the past came visiting. Hmm. So yesterday, okay, I think I was doing my Bible study. I was studying the Bible, and I started reading the book of Luke again. I'm in chapter 2, and I got to a place where the story of Jesus, where he didn't go with his parents after the Passover program when they went to Jerusalem, and the parents had gone, and they were now wondering, where is Jesus? He wasn't with the company, and they went back and they saw him speaking with all of those things. And you know what struck my mind was, yes, Joseph wasn't the real. Joseph isn't the was. So, Joseph wasn't the real father of Jesus. It was a sorrow. It was a his adopted father. Do you understand? Sorry, Jesus was the. Do you say Jesus was the adopted son? Jesus was Jesus was just the surrogate father, if you want to use that word, or just how do you say it? Okay, anyhow, Jesus was not the Joseph wasn't the real father of Jesus. We know that um Mary got pregnant by the spirit by the over by Mary got pregnant when the Holy Spirit came upon her, and so Jesus Joseph wasn't the father of Jesus, but he took up the responsibility. He took it up her, like um Joseph readily accepted Jesus. And when Mary went in search of Jesus, he didn't say, "Oh, he's your son, go and handle him. That's boy," that kind of thing. And as I was reading it, God is humorous. I was just like, God, so if Joseph had maltreated Jesus, not knowing that he is okay, he knew that he was a special child, but he didn't know that he was going to be the savior of the world. I'm sure Jesus would just have been, now that is now that Jesus Christ is in heaven and is seated at the right hand, he would have just been looking at Joseph that, this is the man that maltreated me, because Joseph was his adopted father. So Joseph adopted Jesus. So he could have maltreated him. And we see that happen a lot. In, let me just use the word. We see that happen a lot with other people. Let's not just say African culture, because I've read of where the Western world where they have what do they call it now, they put them into a home system that government pays for them, and some children that have gone through that system have come out to say, oh, my adopted my surrogate parents, they abused me, or they maltreated us, they didn't treat us well. So what is this saying? God, when God brings any child into your care, we should treat them well. And so I'm back to the story of when the past came visiting. One of my very strong readers was like, wow, this is not a widely explored thing, because it's a story of about adoption, so to say, but not real adoption. I don't want to be a spoiler. I don't want to spoil, so that people can go and read it or listen to it, because what I'm doing now is I'm reading them out my stories on YouTube. So I started with Zarachi. Some of us may have gone through it. If you have not, please check it out. Zarachi is a story that I started with. I will be reading out my books part time. It's not it's not easy, really an easy feat, but you can check it out. So I'll read them out, so that those that don't like reading, I know some people don't like reading, but there are still truths we can learn from the books. Can always listen to it. You could listen to it on the go. You could listen to it while you are doing house chores, or while you are doing some things, that kind of thing. And I can tell you, they are spirit inspired and spirit filled books. So Fubara, the setting is in, yeah, okay, so I didn't say the settings of this place. It's in Ijebu and Lagos State, so it's a familiar place for me anyway. Then this one is in Port Harcourt, and the rich culture of the Kalabari people. So Fubara and Kalabari people are also Ijaw. So it's very funny. You have them, they call themselves Kalabari, but they speak the Ijaw language. The wife also is Ijaw, but she's from the Yoruba speaking Ijaw side. I think I've forgotten. The name is in the book anyway. So we see where Fubara had to come in and be a father to his wife's daughter. It's a story that I don't want to. It's intriguing. It's emotionally. It's very emotional. It's very emotional, because at the point I had to stop writing because my emotions were everywhere. So don't worry. But what I tell people, people say, "Oh, African literatures they make people cry." I'm not going to read again. But the truth is, life itself. Yes, you want to get out of the real life. You want to like. Some people read novels like, "Oh, fantasy. Let me enter into the fantasy world," but it won't really be real. So writers also write with the understanding that it has to be real. Life itself comes with hurts, it comes with pains, it comes with the trauma, but we it needs it, also the beautiful aspect of it. Yes, writers shouldn't write all every. I really don't like dark stories. I really don't like it. For me, I'll tell people maybe maybe this one would be my one of my um story that I would say was a big dark for me, but it wasn't really like in the midst of it there was light because Jesus is the light of the world. So that's the essence of what I write as a Christian novelist, as a Christian writer. Um, whatever I write, Jesus brings light. So at the end of it, even in the midst of everything, there's always light shining through, and that's the light of God. So today, I'm just going to coming live. I just want to basically, let people know what I do. I'm a Christian novelist. I write Christian novel, contemporary Christian novels that has Africans as the main characters and with the beautiful African culture. Beautiful African culture. And one of the things that my readers have always loved it, the African culture. So I've gone from writing about the Akwa Ibom people to the Kalabari people to the Yorubas to the people, the Berom tribe in Jos, which is Plateau State. I've written about okay, a little about the Hausa, that's in Jumai. So it's all about it. But in the midst of it, at the center of everything is Christ. Is Christ. So today, let me just read. So what will I read? Okay, so when I write, so it's not just about writing stories that okay, I really, am I going to be written scriptures inside it? No, but it's going to show how people, my characters, how they live their Christian life, and how some of them don't live their Christian life, but they are restored, they are brought back. And also, I there's humor. I always tell people God is humorous. Whichever way you look at it, if God gives us the gift of laughter, that means that God laughs. So in every of my books, I try to put that in. So I'm reading the place I love so much in Ogadima, and sorry, Zarachi story, and I put a character there. It's actually about Zarachi is actually about the Igbo tribe. So they have an Auntie Ngozi that is very humorous. She's a character. She's very dramatic. She's that hand that will come and bamboozle everybody. She's that hand that will come. She's so brassy, but she loves to the depth of her heart. So let me just read chapter 9. That's where Auntie Ngozi is introduced in this book. We saw Auntie Ngozi being introduced in chapter 9. So let me tell you how she came in. Of course, it's Auntie Ngozi, and she must come in with wide wing. She must come in with all of her paparazzi, and she's just coming in, and everybody in chapter 9 knew that Auntie Ngozi had come in. Okay, so let me read it. Chapter 9. Kokoko, kokoko, who dey house? Somebody called from outside the door. No, God, why now? Zarachi mumbled. Why Uzoma, who now wore a frown, stamped her feet. So you can imagine, they are having Auntie Ngozi. They already know that Auntie Ngozi is coming with her drama. Is no one at home? The voice called again. You, Mrs. Okoro, pointed at Uzoma. Mrs. Okoro is their mom. Come on, get up, go and open the door for your hands, Mama said. Zarachi would have just gone to her room, but she knew it won't stop her hands from seeking her out. Prissy, I was beginning to think no one was around, Auntie Ngozi said as soon as she stepped into the house. Now, Auntie Ngozi is here, and she's already showing us drama. Ngo, how are you? What about the children and their father? Mrs. Okoro asked. They are fine, oh, Zarachi. They are fine, oh. Zarachi, why is this place looking like this? Didn't you clean the house today? Auntie Ngozi asked as she used a finger to wipe the center table. Of course, we have those hands that will come around and say, why is the shoe in this place? Why is this? So that's the character of Auntie Ngozi. And I know we will really enjoy Auntie Ngozi. I enjoy and I still enjoy. And most of my readers, that have read the book, that has read Zarachi, keeps talking about Auntie Ngozi being one of their best character in both stories. That's the story. That's Zarachi and Marriage of Convenience, which is a sequel to Zarachi. So let me continue reading. So Auntie God, Prissy, who is um Zarachi's mom, asked Auntie Ngozi how is her family. Then she replied, "They are fine, oh." Okay, we've read that they are fine, oh, that and asking Zarachi why the place is looking unclean, the table is looking unclean. Zarachi sighed inwardly. You know those sighed that, oh, she has come with her troubles. Good afternoon, Auntie Ngo. It is a good afternoon, Auntie Ngo. It is your mother put a cup of gari there just now, she replied. How are you doing, Prissy? Ngozi turned to look at Mrs. Okoro. I am fine, thank you. I didn't know you were coming today, she added. I didn't know either. We came from church to check on a brother that lost his wife. Very wonderful sister. She was just sick for a few days, and that was the end. She finished with a resounding and unexpected clap, you know, that shocked the other occupants of the room. So Auntie Ngozi is here, drama is here. That is the thing with Auntie Ngozi. Ah, this woman can never change, Zarachi thought as she looked at her hands. Uzoma, come and clean this place. That's how you go to your husband's house and make it untidy. Your mother-in-law will now think we didn't raise you well. All you children of these days, Auntie Ngozi said with a huge and dramatic sigh. Of course, we know those aunties that their life mission is to marry off all their nieces and nephews. They don't want to see any of their nieces and nephews married because their occupation all their life has been wife. You understand? So we have their aunties, we have those African aunts. And then I know I've seen people say, oh, I will disrespect them. No, they're coming from a place of love. So I tell people, when people look at people's motive, what's their motive? Is it to spite you? Yes, I know some go out of their way to spite, but those of them, most of them are really coming from a place of love, feeling like, oh, marriage is an achievement. And I tell people marriage is an achievement. I'm not in the class of marriage is not an achievement. If getting a 4-year certificate is an achievement, then marriage, there is a lifetime, there is almost a lifetime. It's an achievement, it's a big achievement, it's a huge achievement, because also the mind of God for his children to be married, happily married. So let me continue. This woman can never change, Zarachi thought as she looked at her hands. Uzoma, Uzoma, come and clean this place. That's how you will go to your husband's house and make it untidy. Your mother-in-law would now think that we didn't raise you well. Oh, you children of these days. Auntie Ngozi said with a huge and dramatic sigh. Uzoma dropped her cup of gari on the table in search of a napkin to clean the table that wasn't even dirty. That's always the issue. At times, you know, these things, they just do it like just to poke you. So that Uzoma had to drop it. Auntie Ngozi picked up the cup of gari she had dropped. Whoa! She screamed as she swallowed a spoonful. Sorry. What? Mrs. Okoro asked, sitting up immediately. Prissy, you need to monitor what these children eat. Oh. Don't let them make you run elter skelter. Oh. Auntie Ngozi said, shaking her head with a sore look on her face, like someone eating bitter gourd. She took another spoonful of the gari again and then smacked a hand on her knee. You can imagine. This is somebody that was like, this thing is too sweet. And then she's still taking more. So we see that with our Africans, you know, like they're just full of characters. They're just bunch of characters. And then one of the things I will always point out is in my book, I put the Nigerian slangs, the Nigerian parlance, how we speak in Nigeria, in some of, where, especially in conversations, because it's just a Nigerian writing for the world. So I'm a Nigerian writing for the world, and we know, of course, our Nigeria, we must always finish our story with ho. Recently, my niece came to my house, and then by the time she was going, the mommy was shouting. I said, "Which one is this ho?" Because in my house there are more grown-ups, and then I'm sure she just picked it up. So anything she say, mommy, you should see me, oh, that kind of thing. And she's just a girl of 4 or 5, but it's the Africa, it's the Nigeria thing. So let's continue. Ah, too much sugar. And this article continue. Too much sugar. Chineke. She says, snapping her fingers. Biko, leave the garri. Don't let the sugar damage your intestines, Mrs. Okoro advised. She went on to take more spoons of the garri while lamenting about the quantity of sugar that was added to it, much to the chagrin of Uzoma. You don't know that sugar damages organs? All the intestines and womb where the children will stay, she said as she pressed her tummy, describing the organs she was referring to. Aunties, auntie, baby stay in the womb, not intestines, Uzoma said. Their aunts gave her a keep quiet look before taking another spoonful of the same garri. It's even better for someone like me that is through with childbearing. Uzoma, biko, bring your hands, more sugar, garri and cold water so she can take enough, Mrs. Okoro said when she saw that she had almost finished the meal. Auntie Ngozi waved her hands in refusal. Mba, 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 mba. I don't want it. It's too sugary. I will even need to take herbs because of these few spoons I have taken now. Zarachi nodded and smiled at their aunt's drama. She was actually Mama's cousin. And that's one thing about African. We have a lot of hands, and I think I did a family tree. I was trying to do my father's side, and at the end I had to stop because there's some cousins and there was some people I can't even describe our relationship. I can't even trace it back again. So most times we have aunties that are actually like our second cousins, that are even like third or fourth cousins, so to say, or even grand aunts, cousins, those kind of things. But it's the African thing. So one of the things you expect to read in my books are this African culture, our rich African culture. Auntie Ngo finally dropped an empty cup of garri. So we see Auntie Ngo dropping the cup of garri because why will she even not drop it after she has finished it upon the story that the garri was sugary? So that's one of the beautiful things you read in my book. The humor, there's always the humor there. So I'm just going to read the beginning of In Search of a Bride. So I've said it, my books will be reading them out as audiobooks on YouTube. So anytime you can go to my page, you will see my books as a drop, addicted audiobooks. So this is a story of Deji. I just want to, I'll read out where the father is trying to convince him to go and get a bride, In Search of a Bride. It's a Christian romance novel. So I'm just going to read it out. Where the father is trying his hand on his left shoulder. I am proud of you. You are truly a chip of the old block. Both men laughed. Thanks, Dad. It was a poignant moment as both men were lost in their thoughts. Otumba quietly removed his hand from Deji's shoulder, cleared his throat, and looked intensely at him. Deji adjusted on his seat, knowing what was coming. What about marriage, Deji? His dad asked wistfully. I will get married when the time is right, Dad. Deji was swift with his usual comeback and looked away from his dad's penetrating eyes. When will the time be right? Will the time ever be right? Because it seems it may never be with the way you are going. Deji, you are 37 now. Your business is doing well. You have all you need to start a family. At least, if you can't join the family business, raise heirs who will take over. Dad, heirs? That's quite archaic. How would you know if your grandchildren will have interest in the family business? Anyway, my sisters are there. They can equally raise heirs to take over the family business. Is that sigh deeply with a sad countenance. So I'm just going to skip that one. Let me go to where the dad got to. Leave those. So the dad is complaining about the girls. That is children from another mother because Deji's mom is dead and he had to take. Deji's mom died and he had to take another wife. Then the dad sighed and says, "Leave those girls and let's talk about you. Do you even have a girlfriend? I have never seen you with any girl before. Don't you meet ladies in that church or fellowship that you attend?" His dad asked. "Dad, please let this marriage matter rest. God will do what only he can do." Deji replied testily. Now Deji is getting angry. "Even though I have introduced you to nice girls who are daughters of my friends, you do not honor the invitation to meet them. And when you do, you are nonchalant and boring." Otumba sighed as both men sat in the ensuing silence, lost in their own thoughts. After a while, Otumba cleared his throat quietly. "See, do you, re- do you know Pastor Dejare?" He started in an attempt to ease the tension. Deji nodded in the affirmative. "I mean the pastor of the church your mom used to attend." His dad explained further. "Dad, I remember him. What happened to him?" Deji asked. "Do you remember his lovely little girls?" Deji rolled his eyes and groaned softly because he already knows what is coming. "No, wait. These girls are born again like you. Don't you get up from there," his father instructed as he stood and moved to his desk to place a call with the intercom. Deji got up to get a bottle of water from the fridge in the corner of the room, wondering what his dad was up to. He stood in front of the window, looking down at the busy street of Marina. Now, this setting is in Lagos, so Marina is a very popular and busy commercial area on Lagos Island. It was one of the reasons he had opted out of the family business. He couldn't see himself sitting in an office like this day in, day out. He loved the space and time outdoors. He needed it for his mental health. Lagos life was too crazy and hectic to deal with, and so he had moved outside Lagos and was doing well with his farming business spread out in Ogun State. His dad approached and stood beside him. Both men had almost the same height and looks, but his dad had succumbed to the wealthy lifestyle and old age had made him a little plump. Excuse me. "I can't get over the sight down there, ever," Otumba said, pointing at the hustling crowd of people and traffic. So we see two men, very similar, very identical in looks and everything, father and son, but with different outlooks to life. And so that's the beautiful thing about life. I keep telling people. So God made it to be so diverse. So you can have two people from a family and their views about life are quite different. Their perspective to things are different. And it makes it all beautiful. And I often wonder why people feel that everybody must have their own school of thought about issues. Then life will become boring. So let me continue the story. So the father continues and said, "The activities down there are a promise that Bade and Sons Electrical Company will always be in business." So the father sees opportunity as he's seeing the people down, walking on the busy streets of Marina. He's seeing opportunities for his own business. But his son is seeing it like it's the crowd is too much for him to handle. He doesn't even like that kind of busy life. Deji glanced at his dad, who was looking at his favorite scene, wondering how they look so much alike physically. Yeah, different in more ways than one. I should be heading back now. It's a long drive, Deji said as he glanced at the wristwatch on his left wrist. Just as his dad was about to reply, there was a rap on the door. Come in, please, he called out. She came in, wearing a white and red polka dot gown. Wearing a white and red polka dot gown with a white belt and open-toe black shoes to match. Good afternoon, sir. You asked to see me, the petite lady said in a tiny and trembling voice. Oh, yes, I did, Otumba said enthusiastically. Come here, he instructed cheerfully, gesticulating. The nervous-looking young lady, who looked like she would have bolted towards the exit, instead walked towards the men, staring at the floor. Gloria, am I right? Otumba asked. You are safe. I had to jump some. You are safe and your job is equally safe too, he said in a more soothing voice. Do you remember my son? Otumba asked, pointing to Deji, who was visibly embarrassed. Dad, I don't even know her. How will she remember me? No, I don't, sir, she replied almost immediately after Deji's response. So that is the little about In Search of a Bride. So that's a little about In Search of a Bride. So I'm just thank you for joining me on this live. I'll just um there was a connection issue, so I'll just continue. I'll be going live more frequent to talk about my books, to discuss issues that to, because what I write about is actually about life issues. Okay, I think it's in yes, In Search of a Bride. We talked about should okay, so I even had this live section with a married counselor that came live on my Instagram channel on Instagram. Yes, she came live. She's a married counselor that I know, and we discussed and we talked about one of the things that I wrote about in this book, which was um Christian couple sex therapies before marriage. Now I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not scriptural. It's not scriptural. There's no way place where it's written in the scripture that is not that you shouldn't see a sex therapist, and there's no place where it's written that see a sex therapist. But of course, some conditions may warrant it. And in truth, and that's what I write about marriage. If I'm writing about any story that has to do with marriage, we address finances because it's a huge part of marriage. Sex is a huge part of marriage. Maybe child parenting a little. I've not really gone into depth into that, but everything about life itself. So you talked about I write about young girls, struggling young girls, and we write about, yes, sexual advances and things like that. I write about rapes, that because it happens in the real world. So how do you handle it? How do you go about it? Hurt, relationship, you have friends, they divorce you, the betrayal, heartbreaks. Those are the things that I write about in my books. In my books, anything that has to do with life issues, and then how you can overcome them. I see the characters through their struggle. So it's like looking at life through another person's lens and how they went through it and how they overcome it. And that's so very important. So it's not just about writing to entertain. Yes, there's entertainment there, like I read from Zarachi. Of course there will always be entertainment because you don't just do life without entertainment. So there will be those humors, there will be those jokes, there will be those things, and then there will be the fact that life is also how do we live it. So I hope you join me again on my life. Thank you for those that joined, those that came in, and I love to see you. And please do subscribe to my channel, like, follow, repost, share, drop comments. Thank you. God bless you.